Today on Inspired Money.
You know, look, money is great, but money to me is just a tool. It's a tool to get to what I really want, and what I really want is, and I'll say it as I want the trophies. You know, I want the businesses, the people. You know, they are my trophies. The people that I get to hold up, the people that are involved with the businesses that I get to help succeed.
This is episode 94 with business coach, author, and podcasting expert, Super Joe Pardo. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, welcome. Inspired Money is different from other personal finance podcasts because we don't want to just learn how to live with money. We want to help each other to live richer lives, make a greater impact, and together, make the world a better place. Today's guest is Joe Pardo. He does a lot of stuff. So much stuff that one of his friends once called him Super Joe Pardo. The name stuck. He has an award-winning podcast called Business with Super Joe Pardo. He's written 4 books. He's a speaker and business coach. And this is actually the real reason why he kept the super title. He's focused on helping business owners to grow their businesses, create jobs, and for them to be super. He's founder of MapCon, the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference. And wait, there's more. Super Joe's recent project is a TV show called The Top with Joe Pardo, a business show that takes businesses that have stalled in their growth or are struggling to survive, and Joe comes in to help. So Joe is out there hustling. I hope that you'll enjoy his story. In this episode, you'll learn what Joe learned working at his family's trucking business and how it shaped him as a business person, how he started his podcast and his own business, and we'll talk about the idea of legacy as a motivator to want to make an impact. And we'll talk about the idea of legacy as a motivator to want to make a bigger impact. Now let's get inspired with Super Joe Pardo. Super Joe Pardo. So awesome to have you on Inspired Money. Welcome to the show.
What is up, Andy? How we doing?
I'm doing really good. Let's jump in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
It was probably buying some Nintendo games. With like money that I had saved up.
You're a big video game guy.
I am. I grew up playing a lot of video games. I kind of joke that sometimes I feel like I was born in the wrong generation. Like if I was born just like 10 years later, instead of 86, like 96, you know, I'd have my professional gaming career. Because when I was growing up and, into especially the computer games that I play, they were big. There were some big names in it, but it wasn't like the money wasn't flowing into it like it is now. I missed that boat by 10 to 15 years.
That's really cool. I'm older than you. So for me, it was Pac-Man, which was like the worst version of Pac-Man. It was not like the one in the arcade. It was so basic, but we waited so long for Pac-Man to come out on the Atari. So it's awesome to be speaking with you. I read that you're a 6th generation business owner. Were you the little kid who was dreaming up businesses like selling lemonade and setting up that kind of stuff? Or did it all come later on?
No, I actually, that was me dreaming up big ideas, for like events and bringing people together. I remember I got in trouble for selling some of those same Nintendo games when I was, I had to have probably been about 7 or 8 years old, going door to door in our neighborhood with my friend Matt and selling Nintendo games, and got yelled at for that. For me, business, doing doing things that, like I said, creative things, bringing people together. It's always been it's just been a part of who I am.
And at a young age, you were already going into your family's business and like seeing what a real workplace is like, right?
Yeah, from the age of 6, I started working in my family's business, sweeping floors, counting inventory, that kind of stuff. I remember some of the sales reps would have to go and count their own inventory for their stock when they would come before they could get an order, and I would go and help them with counting out that stock from the age of, like I said, 6, 7, 8 years old. It was fun. It was real eye opening, I think, for me, and it helped me see, like, from an operations standpoint of like how things work and how they could work and how they could work better, and being hands on with the process from a young age, I think, has given me a huge leg up in just helping figure out what I want to do and where I want to head.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about Pardo Truck Service Parts, because your grandfather was there, your dad was there, and there was a period of time where it looked like you were the guy as far as family members were involved. Like you were going to be the guy to take over at some point.
Yeah, so so like I said, working there since I was little. Once I got out of high school, at the age of like 17, I went full time at the business. I did college. I did like 1.5 semesters of college. Ended up like dropping out of it and just staying full time in the business. Took over all from like 2003. I was doing a lot of the IT work, building computers and things of that nature. So actually it was even earlier, 2003. It was probably in like 2000. We were like buying those build your own computer kits, like bare bones kits, and then putting them together and getting like one at a time out in the at the counters that we had in all the different stores, just so that they'd have like basic, there was like lookup programs and things that they could use, because they were all using old like terminal style stuff, like old like text terminal stuff to bill invoices out. So it's from the IT side, rolled into starting doing the operations, inventory management, purchasing of like the parts, like the inventory, but so all that stemmed from working in the warehouse, like from the age of 6 to about 16, 17 years old, every summer and anytime I had off and things of that nature. So it just kind of continued to progress, where it's like, okay, it was pretty obvious that I was in line to take it over, because I don't have any other brothers. My sister wasn't, she was kind of involved, but she wasn't involved to the level that I was to learn over the course of the years. So yeah, I was in line to take it all over.
Yeah, and it's a pretty big business because you have multiple locations. I understand it was the biggest of its kind on the East Coast. It was no small operation, and you were involved in all aspects. So it sounds like your grandfather and father were grooming you to like take over at some point.
Same as they were in the previous businesses that existed prior to Pardo Truck Service Parts. Yeah, we had 10 locations up and down the East Coast. It was the largest independently owned truck parts company on the East Coast. So it was like all the way from like North Jersey all the way down to Florida. Then we also had 2 repair shops that would repair the truck. So we sold parts to those repair shops as well, which were are owned by, at the time, one was owned by my uncle, my great uncle, my grandfather's brother, and one was owned by my dad at a later date. When one of the locations, they moved from like just being a parts location to being parts and service. So that's when that expanded.
So what did you love about the family business, and what did you not love about it?
So what I loved about it was a lot of the people were like family. You know, a lot of the employees, team members have been there since I was little. Some of them literally since before I was born had been there. Um, I yeah, there was a lot of people that I really enjoyed working with. What I didn't enjoy was the fact that it was basically retail, right? So all the crap that comes with being retail, it came there. So basically, we were only closed on Sundays. We were open, Monday through Saturday, and some of those hours or some of those days, we like Monday through Thursday. At one point, we were open from 8 to 8. And there was a lot of times where I was expected to be there from 8 to 8, Monday through Thursday, and then on Saturdays from 8 to 2. So like the hours, weren't great. It was a heavy expectation. Running the IT for like 100+ person company that's spread over several states it was a lot. And then on top of that, doing inventory management, working with the different departments. With their technology needs, working with the different departments on trying to improve how inventory flowed between all the locations. Like the last big thing that I did in terms of operations and inventory management and technology was implemented an algorithm that enabled us to use the computer to look at what we've sold in the past. And as in the past, like literally the previous day back, and negotiate what we should have on the shelves in each location because of that history. So like a minimum stocking quantity and a maximum stocking quantity, and it all being generated through the computer system that we had already had since the 80s, which we actually just phased out at the repair shop now. But little foreshadowing, actually. So what we were able to do is take our inventory from about $6 million and condense it down to it would be about 2.5 million, and it would balloon up to about 3 million, depending on the time of month. So it would dwindle down, and then the beginning of the month it would inflate up real quick, and then like in a week and a half, and then start to taper back down. So we did all that in about 2 years' time. Through doing lots of inventory returns, things. See, my grandfather had this theory, right, where it's like, if I have it on my shelf and I pay the low price for it, and I sell it like a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years later, it's all good. The price on that part continues to increase over time. I made my money. I made more money because I had it. Not that he's wrong, but I subscribe to the everything pays rent, right? So all your space, everything that takes up space in your space has to pay rent because you're paying a square footage, right? A dollar per square foot. And if it's not paying its rent in necessity or in like a want or a need, then it needs to go. It needs to be freed up so you can make room for other things that are paying its rent and being multiplied out. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. There's that, and also if you've got $6 million in inventory, if you can reduce that to 2.5, you're freeing up capital that can be deployed somewhere else if need be.
Right, and that was a big thing at the time because the economic disaster happened 2008, 2009. In 2012, there was a small recession as well, but there was a big change in the trucking industry as well that really hurt us with, which was in 2000 and I want to say 2000 and it's either 2008 or 2012. That's when all of the trucks had this huge change come about where they had to put on these diesel particulate filters on their trucks, and a lot of people were buying trucks right before that went into effect. And I can't recall off the top of my head. I think it was 2000, might have been 2008. So we were starting to feel the crunch as warranties were still going on and things of that nature. So like there was a bit of a crunch there as well for us because as everything moves by truck, right? Everything gets touched by a truck that we have. Everything that I'm sitting inside of, everything that your headphones, everything around you was touched by a truck. So if we're, when a recession hits, people are moving less things, more trucks are sitting, they're not getting repaired, they don't need as many parts. It's just the way it goes. So it was a good time for us to take advantage of being able to return a lot of things, cycle inventory to stores that needed it, rather than having it sit idly in one location when another location, we're just buying it for another location constantly. So we were able to filter a lot of that down very rapidly, actually. When I go back and look at the spreadsheet that I tracked as a diary to see like where the inventory was, sometimes the marks were like multiple times a day. Early on, I was taking to get a bigger sample size. I was looking at like, what's our inventory level now? What's it at like noon? What's it at 3 o'clock? And what's it at 5 o'clock? And then in the morning, first thing in the morning, 8 a.m., like I want to know what it is at. Because there's like ebbs and flows with inventory moving between locations and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to get as many sample points as possible. And as time went on, I was just I started tracking like morning and night, just to get the most amount of samples to be able to base data on. And the great thing is our sales started, continued to rise through those years, through 2012, 2013, 14. And it was very positive for us to be able to reduce that inventory, that burden, and free up a whole lot of cash in the meantime, and space in the meantime. Now, the downside to that, Andy, is people are like, well, now you're not stocking anything anymore. And it's like, well, that's like not the whole story, right? Like, people need, but when it comes to managers and stuff like that, like, and as it turns out, these bigger companies that a lot of them ended up going to work for later on after the fact, years later, they do the same thing, right? But they don't allow as much human input as we were. So my thing was like, hey, the paper says you've sold 1 in 2 years. Cool. You have 10 on your shelf. You don't have to give me all 10. Give me like 7 or 8 of them so I can recycle that. And then you have 2 on your shelf. And then if you sell those 2, you're going to get to keep, you're going to get your minimum and your maximum stocking readjusted. Like it was like every day it was readjusting.
Yeah, it sounds like a really big contribution to me because it's managing your inventory more efficiently. And I would imagine that would have a positive impact on the valuation of the company since it ends up getting sold down the road, right?
It did, yeah. So that was one of the things where it's funny. Again, it's that old school way of thinking. It's like, well, if I have this much in inventory, then the bank thinks like, oh, they have assets they can sell off if things start going south real quick. But the way I see it is that it gets to a point where it's like you shouldn't have too much inventory like tied up because it's just so much money that you don't even know that if you're going to be able to get the money out of it. Like, because some of those parts might be turning into 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old obsoleted parts, so they're already like obsoleted, and the value is, mitigated by the fact that less people are looking for them.
So, Joe, it sounds like a healthy business, a good business. There were a lot of Pardos involved in the business. Tell us the day that you left, like, why was that one of the most difficult decisions that you had to make?
So it was August 13th. It was August something. I was going to help my friend move his life away from our neighborhood. I live in the neighborhood I grew up in, and he was living at the house he grew up in, and he was getting ready to move to New York. So I helped. I borrowed one of our trucks, like our big straight trucks, packed his life up. I went over to my dad's house and told him like, hey, look, I'm really getting burnt out, and I think I'm ready to go do something else, and I don't know what that looks like. I'm really not sure what it looks like, what I'm going to do. I don't have a degree, like I said, so I think the first step is I'm going to go back to school, and I'm not, I'm really not sure. I had a few ideas. I was thinking maybe I want to get involved with like sports management or something to that effect, since I'm like pretty good with numbers and that kind of thing. Statistics. So I start going back to school, and I was supposed to be done. My last day was supposed to be January 1st, 2014, but it just did not. It just wasn't feeling like it was a good time. It wasn't a good time for me because I still didn't figure out what the heck I was going to do. I was still in school. I was going to a bunch of networking events and doing a bunch of just trying to get a feel for what it is that I wanted to do. And in the meantime, things at the shop were getting kind of I felt like it was getting very toxic. Because it was not a very welcomed thing for me to say, hey, I want to leave. I know that this business is huge. It's paid for everything in my life.
Yeah. Were you getting a lot of pushback from your dad?
A lot. Yeah, it was not good. It was to the point where I didn't even want to interact at all. And what sucked is my office. So to get to his office, you had to walk by my office. So he would walk back and forth past my office 100 times a day. So I was a lot of times where I would even put my head down below the monitor just to please don't come in. Please just don't come in. So April 2nd was the last day, and I still didn't know what I really wanted to do. But things had just gotten so bad, toxic between both of us. It ended in a fist fight. In the after, it was the end of the day. Everybody had pretty much left. And me and him started to get into an argument, and it ended in a fight. Which, at the time, I had to leave there and go take a test in one of my classes. I was so mad and upset and distraught. Fortunately, that teacher didn't show up that day, so I was able to leave. I waited it was 20 minutes or whatever, and I left because I was like, this is perfect because I don't even really want to take this test. I just need to go home. And that was it. And I at the point I still didn't know what it is what was I going to do? I have a house with a mortgage and a wife and car payments, and fortunately she was a teacher at the time, so she still had her job. She had her insurance and all that. So a month goes by. I'm on a plane to Disney World, and podcasting kind of landed. The idea of starting a podcast landed in my lap because I had, at the time, I was making my first DJ album. I also DJ as well, and I was making my first DJ album. So that came out April 14th. So it was just 12 days after I just left my job. My life, my career path, my future, my past, everything. This album comes out, and I'm doing all these podcast interviews to promote it. And I'm on a plane to Disney World a few weeks later, and my friend's why don't you listen to this podcast? He was talking about Entrepreneur on Fire at the time. He's like, oh, there's all these entrepreneurs they're interviewing. And I was like, wow, I never really thought about doing a podcast from an interview style. I was trying to get on roundtable discussions about Disney World to promote this Disney mashup album that I did.
Coming up, we talk about Joe's businesses after leaving his family's trucking company, podcasting, and legacy. But first, let's take a look at how Super Joe moves quickly when he sees an opportunity.
And yeah, so on the plane ride, I came up with the name Dreamers Podcast. The plane landed. I already had a list of people I wanted to interview, and I had registered the domain name, the Facebook page, and the Twitter handle before I even got to the rental car. And then 2 weeks later, I had my first podcast episode out. I went to 3 episodes a week the following week, and then went to 5 days a week about 3 weeks after that. And I did that for about 3 months before backing it down so I could start writing my first book and doing a lot more speaking engagements and stuff like that.
The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/094. If you're listening in your car, wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to learn more about Super Joe, his podcast, TV show, or things mentioned in this episode. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. In the spirit of Super Joe helping small business owners, I want to share a side project with you that my brother Chris and I have been working on. It's called buylocalnj.com. It's a video series that we created where we interview local business owners in our community. So far, we've interviewed restaurants, a toy store, fitness and yoga studios, and a consignment store, and even an ice cream shop. We love visiting ice cream shops. Why am I telling you this? It's more than a shameless plug. We're really passionate about supporting small business. Now, I have to admit that a lot of Amazon boxes do get delivered to our home. It's super convenient to buy things online and have them delivered. But no matter where you are, I'm willing to bet that you have some empty storefronts on your main street or somewhere near you. We believe that it's a strong local business presence that makes a downtown busy, livable, and enjoyable. Great shops and eateries give a community its character, and often the business owners themselves are characters who offer fun gathering places that bring us all together. When small business wins, communities win. There's a local ecosystem that serves the greater community. When you shop at a small business, the resulting revenues pay for a local employee who is likely to go spend his or her money locally too. It's a virtuous cycle. So I want to encourage you to strike that balance between the convenience of online shopping, but thoughtfully supporting local businesses near you. When your money cycles through your community, it can add to the character of your town, and there is a benefit to you too because it can even support property values. If you get a chance, check out our videos at buylocalnj.com. I'd love to hear what you think. We're definitely learning by doing. Please consider buying local to support stronger communities. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. Do you have any questions about your finances? If you need help, email me at inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. I'd love to hear from you. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. At what point did you start thinking about coaching and courses and different ways to really create a business? Because it sounds like creating the podcast was like the birth of it all. And I'm sure it was pretty intense trying to do like 3 shows a week, up to 5 shows a week. How much was just like, I've got to create content for the podcast for audio versus thinking, what else can I do with it? Like, what is my business going to be?
So it was very early on. In fact, I took a coaching client because originally, the thought was something along the lines of more like life coach than business. A lot of people come to me with their life issues, like whether back when I was working in the company, even employees would come to me with their life issues, friends and even people that I don't know very well, and they still do. It's awesome I feel honored that people feel that comfortable to talk to me like that. But so very early on, so like when I was, I went, I remember I was over at my dad's house at one point, and I was like, look, this is the path, right? The podcast builds the audience. There's going to be books. There's going to be, these T-shirts. There's going to be coaching. There's going to be speaking engagements. Like all of these things, like all these different products and courses and things of that nature are all going to come together. And, well, I don't get it. And I'm like, well, I see this, to me, I saw the dots. I saw where everything was like, okay, this is all going to line up and it's all going to work very, very, it's all going to work. I get it. It might take a while because I'm one person doing a whole lot of things. But, at the time I was like, I know that I'm going to be able to bring these dots together, and people are gonna look back and be like, oh wow, like all that makes sense. It's crazy. And ultimately, I've taken the change. I took a more of a direction towards business. It makes a lot of sense for me because that's really what I wanted to talk about. That's why my show went from being Dreamers Podcast to Dreamers Podcast, business lessons from those that live their dreams. And eventually turned into business with Super Joe Pardo.
Yeah, congrats. You recently celebrated 5 years podcasting. And I listened to your 5-year celebration episode. In that, you talked about that early on, you had this vision that you were going to be interviewing entrepreneurs, and that was going to create this sort of mousetrap where you could talk to a lot of people, they would share it, and you'd really quickly ramp up this massive network. But you mentioned that it didn't quite happen that fast, or didn't quite end up the way that you envisioned originally. Like, what are your thoughts there?
It didn't. Yeah, I mean, I remember talking to Al in that episode and how I thought like, oh, this is gonna ramp up really fast because I'm gonna be doing so many, I'm doing so many episodes, interviewing so many people, and just constantly building out my network. And I did, like, I did that. What didn't happen from that was I didn't. And I think part of it might have been because of the messaging and how it wasn't necessarily laser focused enough to get everybody, on board with the same, like at the same time with the same thing. But it just didn't go as fast as I thought it would.
Is that because Dreamers is too broad?
I think ultimately, that was the case. It was too broad. I mean, I had friends that came to me and said like, "Hey, I love your show, but I listen to it because it's you, not because, if I saw your show in my feed or whatever, and I didn't know it was, I didn't know you, I would probably just pass on it because of the manner of how the show was presented. Like my logo for the longest time was drawn out in Sharpie marker and things like that. And it's things that, like, I love. It's getting creative and getting people thinking about, like, okay, what is it that I wanted to be when I was a kid and all that. But, I think that's what it is. I think it wasn't niched enough for what I was trying to accomplish, because it wasn't super early on, but it was probably in the first 2 years, two and a half years, I started to realize, like, I don't want to be like the next, like, Oprah, the next Steve Harvey or Ellen DeGeneres. Like, I don't want to be a talk show host in that sense. Like, I could do it if somebody, saw my stuff was like, Joe, I want to give you a big sack of money and go do this. Like, yeah, all right, let's talk about it, see how we can make it happen. But that's not my goal. Like, the goal that I have is to really help business owners and help create and save jobs, and to be able to do that, doing these interviews and interviewing other people, like, that's not helping me accomplish that necessarily. Like, it's helping me network with other people, which is great. And if anybody's looking to do so, like, start a podcast, start interviewing people, because your network will go a lot further than it would if you didn't. I didn't know anybody in the online space before podcasting. So now I have this huge network of people all around the world that I can call on. And part of that is, like with my new show, I'm able to call on those experts to help me with other areas that I'm just not that person to be able to help them the best with.
Your new show being the TV show, The Top with Super Joe Pardo.
Yes.
So it's all about, like, the common theme that I see since you left your family business. It really is connecting a lot of people. And central to that is your desire to help small business owners. I think a lot of solopreneurs, but maybe a mix of different types of businesses in size and in what their area of business is. What do you find has been the most helpful tool since you've been deeply involved in podcasting? You also founded a podcasting conference, but now you have a TV show. You've also done, well, with the conference, you've done live events. Where do you think you get the most bang for the buck, or is it good to have a diversity and just try all kinds of different things?
Really getting started, I think it's good to get really focused, at least in the beginning, so that you can do it as much as possible, so you can get as good as you can in a very short period of time, rather than trying to diversify. Do I think I'm too diversified? Hell yeah, I do. There's just so many things. I mean, Andy, like, there's things that I have a fifth book that I want to write. There's so people that come to MapCon and even before really MapCon really love the shirts that I make. Like, I also have, like, a t-shirt line that most of it is focused in the podcasting space, but there's some in the dreamer space too. And I have a whole website that I've been slowly piecing together, and like I want to get that launched. Maybe by the end after MapCon this year, that will probably be my after MapCon project. Is working on getting that launched rather than writing the fifth book, because that's going to take probably longer than the amount of time that I have. But I think getting really hyper focused and spending time really thinking and being thoughtful of like how does this connect, right? So one of the things when you look at like my books, right? I have 4 books. I have 3 self-development books, which were under the Dreamers podcast, banner at the time, and 1 business book. And now I'm looking to do my 5th book, which is actually more than likely a mashup of the first 4 books, but in a more professional setting, like a more professional way that gets flown under the business banner. So it's not that I can't do it. It's just that do I have the amount of time to dedicate to it and make it worth its time, worth its effort. One of the things that I love though about the books is that it's a constant revenue stream, right? And that's like every piece that I've been trying, like, okay, so I have a few courses too online. Most of them are revolved like tech centric, right? So like podcasting and like blogging and video editing and audio, platform building. And those are awesome. And they're, especially the platform building one is pretty timeless, because the tech ones, as long as the software stays the same, it's fine. But it's when the software changes different. But the thing is, like, I still sell those, maybe not as regular as I would like to, because I don't put a ton of effort and time into marketing them to get them to be sold. But they're there and they make sales from time to time. And for me, that's good enough. Like, I'm okay with that.
You like the passive income aspect of it.
Yeah, trying to set all that up. Yeah, and in the meantime of like building, speaking career and building other people's businesses through coaching and through the TV show. So I want a mix of both, because I want to be able to, as like the TV, so I do all this stuff, right? And it's like as the TV show ramps up and more and more people find out about it, like, oh, Joe already has all these products here. Like, I already have like the next step, right? It's not like I have to. I think maybe I built the second step in front, like, and the first step at the same time, which probably took a lot more effort and time than if I had taken the effort to just worry about building the audience first. In which case, I probably would have came to the conclusion a lot sooner that like, hey, Dreamers is awesome. But it's really business centric, right? Like, it's the people that are interested in the business stuff that are coming to it. And if I had gotten to that sooner, maybe it would have sped everything up quicker.
Yeah, but I guess all in all, 5 years, even though in podcasting years seems like forever, really isn't that much time. So like in the life cycle of a business, 5 years is short. I know that lifestyle is important to you, and you mentioned that somewhere along the way you realized that you don't want to be Oprah. Like, who do you want Super Joe Pardo to be?
Well, other than being Super Joe Pardo, if I had to equate who I'm like most trying to align myself to, like, not fully model, but like kind of inspiration from, it would probably be Marcus Lemonis. That's, a big pull there. So, I want to be able to impact as many lives as possible. And I feel that business is the best way for me to do that. Having the background that I have and being able to impart that knowledge onto business owners that can amplify that effect to multiple people, so many people, because of not only the employees and the team members that they build around them and affecting their families, but also the customer base, right, and affecting their lives. So, I not just their lives, but also their expectations of like, well, when I go to deal with this company, why do I get like not the experience that I get when I go to the company that has figured out how to do it the right way, where I'm less inconvenienced and more time is saved and that kind of stuff.
Joe, I'd like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
God, that is tough. The way I define success look, money is great, but money to me is just a tool. It's a tool to get to what I really want, and what I really want is, and I'll say it as I want the trophies. I want the businesses, the people. They are my trophies. The people that I get to hold up, the people that are involved with the businesses that I get to help succeed. Those are the trophies. The work, the books that I create, right? Those are the trophies. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it almost doesn't matter if I sell a whole bunch of them. It's more about, like, look at the work that I put forward. And when I get to, at the end of the day, when I finally leave this earth, those are the things that's like, okay, I can look back and say, yeah, look, I got everything out of me that was inside of me.
I love the impact part, because it is about legacy. It's like you want to leave something behind, and in your time here, you want to have the biggest impact possible that you can. Why do you think that's important to you? Where does that come from?
I mean, I think it probably, my grandfather was a big inspiration in that. He did a lot of things when he was probably a little bit older than I am right now, in both the community and in the local Philadelphia area. And I don't know, because, I always, when I was younger, I used to say, like, I want to impact so many people that, like, when they have my viewing, it's like a 2-day event, like a 2-day party, and if there isn't at least one DJ spinning at my viewing, then I didn't tell somebody, then I didn't do my job in letting somebody else know that, like, this is what it's supposed to be. I think it also kind of comes from, some of, like, the video games. It has a big impact on that. Like, one of the games that, changed my life or one of the people that changed my life was Will Wright of SimCity and Maxis. Those games just really spoke to me about, like, city planning and navigating complex issues and things of that nature. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure.
Well, the good news is that those around you are the beneficiaries. I don't know necessarily what the driver is, but I love that it's like you want to have a party now, but you're also thinking down the road that when you're gone, you want there to be a big party too. And it's kind of a nice motivation that keeps you going. And so maybe that's your secret.
I hope it's not morbid.
Maybe that's your secret. That's why you can juggle so many balls, and that's why you're willing to try so many things and do so much.
Because it's a big party?
Yeah, you're trying to achieve that at the end, that there will be a big party. Like, you got to earn that, right? It's not just going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I hope I still feel that way when I get, older. But I don't. It's funny too, because, like, I don't even really like parties that much. But I want people. But I like people to have a good time and to enjoy themselves. So, but I like hosting. But I like, that's what MapCon's all about. I don't make a ton of money from MapCon, but I make enough to at least justify, like, okay, I have to invest, like, a lot of time, a lot of effort to make it work, to at least, make a little bit of money and everybody has a great time. But I do it because I love it. I love podcasting. I love the people that I've gotten to meet because of it. It doesn't really speak to my business, the business coaching end of it so that much, aside from, like, some of the solopreneurs that I've worked with from it. But I do it because I love it, and I love bringing people together. And it's just, I think it's just I guess a testament to that.
Well, I love that it's about impact, and yeah, really appreciate you spending time and sharing your story and sharing how you want to make that impact. Can you tell the Inspired Money listener where to follow you, find out more about you, and especially, we didn't really get into the TV show in detail, but let people know where they can find it and watch it.
Yeah, so well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Andy, and I hope that I've answered all of your questions the best that I could. Some of them were pretty I wasn't expecting them. So I appreciate you doing your research and taking the time. So if anybody's interested, you can go to superjoepardo.com. It's at Super Joe Pardo for all like Facebook and social, Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to find out about MapCon, go to midatlanticpodcast.com. That's where you can get me. And I invite you to reach out.
Awesome. And then the TV show, YouTube, I watched the first one, but where else does it air?
Yes. So it's going to air on Biz TV. It's at some point. I'm still trying to hammer out the sponsorships and get enough episodes together that because it's going to be on TV. It's going to be 26 episodes. So I got episode 1 done. I got a meeting tonight for a sponsor. I got a lunch meeting on next Monday for episode 2, and I have a few other people that have reached out. If you have a business and you want to get help with growing that business, then you should definitely go to superjoepardo.com/casting. You'll be able to watch the first episode right there on the casting page, and you can fill out the form, and I will reach out to you within probably 24 to 48 hours personally and get you scheduled with a video call. We'll go through the deep dive questions and see if you're a good fit, see if we can make it work. Preferably if you're in the, say, Connecticut down the DC area, that would be preferable right now. Once we get more sponsors on board, then we will be, looking at like, okay, how do we get to some of the ones that reached out, like Wyoming, LA, Georgia, Orlando, like those are awesome. I gotta get some sponsorship money together so I can get down there because it doesn't cost you anything to be on the show. In fact, I pay you, Andy. It's such a great deal. I pay you $2 to take it off my hands.
Well, congrats on the TV show and all the great things that are cooking. Thanks, Joe. It's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? I love how Joe authentically has a desire to help business owners to grow. In seeing how he's leveraging his podcast, live event through his podcast conference, and the new TV show, it's all about making connections. No matter if you're building your contacts quickly or slowly, it's really important. I love how Joe with the TV show can rely on his network of experts and bring them into the fold as needed. And finally, I love the idea of legacy. Having goals now is important, of course, but by thinking about legacy and what you want to leave behind, this is how you play the long game. So are you feeling inspired? Thank you so much for joining me on this mission. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment and takeaway, let me know by posting in the private Inspired Moneymakers Facebook group at inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. And a shout out to Eric Hunley for introducing me to Super Joe Pardo. Thank you so much. If you want to listen to another cool show, check out Eric's Unstructured.
My name is Eric Hunley, and I host Unstructured. On Unstructured, I have intimate conversation with a diverse range of people. I've interviewed a presidential candidate and a felon, not the same person. I've even chatted with a musher. Yep, a sledder behind a pack of dogs. And in these conversations, we learn what drives these folks. Please, come check out Unstructured. You can find Unstructured wherever you listen to podcasts.
The music you're listening to right now and all other music on today's show is by the amazing Jim Kimo West. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.